what's going on, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for tuning in to this edition of The Drop-In. I have one of the most amazing people I have met. I mean, I guess we've been friends a couple of years, but the whole, like, the way the world was, we were going to do a charity event, and then it had to get postponed for like 2 years, so we only got to meet face-to-face very recently. And I asked Mike, I said, why don't you come on the show, dude? Your story, amazing. The things you've seen, amazing. Come and let's talk about it on The Drop-In. So I have Mike Ward here today for your viewing and listening pleasure. But I want to thank you guys for taking your time to spend with us. You can't get it back. And so we're going to give you some quality content today to inspire you to get off the couch and make life happen. This isn't a dress rehearsal. We get one shot at life, one shot. And it's our choice to make it what we want it to be. And the guests that come to the Better Rate Mortgage Studios on The Drop-In, they are bringing you stories to inspire you to get off the couch and make life happen. But I have to tell you this funny joke back here. If you're familiar with the movie Spinal Tap, they had this show and they wanted Stonehenge, and it was supposed to be like 11 feet high and it was 11 inches high. Well, we got this backdrop of The Drop-In, and it was supposed to fit in one of these spots here on the side of the Better Rate Mortgage Studios sign here. And it's huge. So it'll end up hanging in my basement or at another location. But for now, I thought it was funny because it reminded me of Spinal Tap on the opposite end. So anyway, that's why that's sitting here. We will have it taken care of very soon. But thank you once again. And with no more out of my trap, I want to introduce you to my friend Mike Ward. Mike, thanks so much for coming down here and visiting with us.
Oh, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
thanks for having me. It was so great to finally meet you, because we got introduced by our buddy Jay Adams, and he hooked us up so that you were going to play sled hockey at our event, which was going to be in March 23rd, 2020.
Mm-hmm.
We were 1 week away, and we got shut down. Rightly so. But and then we just couldn't do it. We couldn't do it. And then finally we got it scheduled, and we just played on March 19th, and you were part of it. You got out there in a sled, worked your ass off, right?
It was so much fun.
Your arms and your core, right?
Yeah.
It's like crazy how much work it is.
I was so impressed by the skills of the youngsters that were playing on our team.
Right.
The one young lady had a hat trick. And it
Jenna.
was,
Jenna is awesome. I've known Jenna for quite some time. For about 5 years, I was running the Michigan Youth Sled Hockey program. And then that program kind of splintered due to different factors, and now the Metro Detroit group has taken up that group, and they've really grown it. They've got them in tournaments now. They're playing games. They're really, really moving them forward. There's a really great group out of Grand Rapids, the Grand Rapids Sled Wings. They're huge. They've got like 50 kids, but they're totally sponsored 100%.
Oh, cool.
Every bit of their equipment, all their gear, everything by Mary Freebed Hospital over there. And then there's the Michigan Sled Dogs, which is an adult team. And what the goal is over here is to have the two sled teams, the kids and the sled dogs, kind of, when the kids get old enough to play with the sled dogs, they move up. That's the goal. So we hope that happens.
Yeah, that's cool. The Sled Wings, that is a great name.
Oh yeah, it's awesome.
That is a great name.
They play where the Griffins do, so they get access to that as well, in Van Andel Arena. So they're a really good group over there. They've participated in our event a couple times, but they had a tournament they hosted that same weekend. So, you got a lot of moving parts when you try and put on a charity event like that. You got the Red Wing alumni, you've got us, you've got the Pucksters and the Sledsters. Those are the able-bodied athletes who come on and play, and then all of those sled kids every one of them has a disability of some level or another. It's a physical disability that generally affects their lower half.
Cool. Wow. You do amazing stuff. We're going to get into all that later in the interview, but I have to ask you, you sent over the bio. I'm looking through it, and your nickname is Psycho. I gotta know.
Psycho Ward.
Psycho Ward. Okay. Where does that come from?
So I think I was in college. I think I was studying in graphic design, and I have a horrible Irish temper. From years of playing hockey and fighting with my brothers and sisters. I'm the 7th out of 8 kids in a big Irish Catholic family with big Irish tempers, and I remember one day I slammed something because I was pissed about something in the art class, and I slammed this paper cutter, and my instructor Jack Hennessy goes, "Oh, you're a real psycho, Ward." And it stuck. And then he started making jokes about, "Hey, when you have kids, there'll be maternity ward," and and it was just like it went on and on. So that kind of stuck. And when I started writing, when I started doing freelance work, when I was I went to school for graphic design and advertising, but I had some freelance side work, and I would call it psychographics, and then. When I started writing music, they became Psycho Songs was my copyright, and I didn't really intend on using it as a sort of stage name.
Mm-hmm.
But when I released my first album onto iTunes and Spotify, there's way too many Mike Wards. It's just a really common name. And so in order to basically try and get it quickly separated, I added Psycho Songs. So it's Mike Ward Psycho Songs on Spotify and iTunes and Amazon and all that, just because it made it easier for people to find me.
Right. No, that's...
And it's a good story.
Yeah.
And, when I was in the advertising business, I had a horrible temper. I was a wall puncher. And I would get pissed, and I would punch these walls that were like, they were sheetrock. So they really didn't. It wasn't punishing until one day I accidentally punched a door that was basically solid, and I broke my knuckle right here, and that sort of put an end to the wall punching. When I at that point I was working at Donor. I left for a couple of years and went to Denver. When I came back from Denver, they had actually put a heavy bag in my office.
That's funny.
So that I had an outlet to punch. They knew.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd take that as a compliment, but at least they understood where you were coming from.
It's one of those businesses that's, you're always on the edge. You're
Mm-hmm.
always at the end of your deadline. You're always working late. You're always right on the edge of everything. And you feel like, this most of the time. And I will say that was my first 6.5 years in the business. They were all like that. I was working 80 hours a week, and it was crazy. And I moved to Denver for a couple of years, and it was really, for part of that, it was partly because of that. I was so burned out. And I went to Denver and realized that, wow, you can still do this business, and you can find things to do and have a life. And so when I came back, I still put in a lot of hours, but I guess I had learned that, if I could leave for 2.5 years, I could certainly leave to go to dinner,
Mm-hmm.
And everything still ran smoothly.
Yep.
So, and I've been out of the business now for since 2017, and it's great.
Yeah. Before we go too much further, see if you can pull that mic in a little bit towards you.
Okay.
Just to make sure we capture it all.
Okay. So pull it
Yeah,
in
there
here.
we go.
Okay. Yeah,
That's
I think
probably
I
better.
bumped it when I was playing guitar.
Yeah, we're going to get to that too.
Okay,
But,
all right.
when you were coming up through high school and college and all that kind of stuff, I like to ask the guests, what kind of person were you? Because we get you now after you've been through X amount of years of life. What kind of person were you in high school? Were you the popular kid? Were you a kid in the corner? Were you always studying?
I wasn't always studying, that's for sure. I studied enough. Like I said, I'm the 7th out of 8, so I kind of had this view where I got to see different parts of my family. I had an older my oldest brother was an artist, is an artist. He's still a sculptor down in Atlanta. So I saw that creative side. My sister Kathy, she wanted to be in fashion design, and I saw her. My sister Margaret was really academic, studied poetry, studied writing, was a teacher. And then my brothers Tom and Chris, they were in athletics, and there was a lot of partying going on in that time in those guys. But they were, they went in different directions. My brother Tom went into accounting. My brother Chris, he became a millwright and a pipe fitter. My brother Pat, younger, went to dentistry. I was drawn to the creative arts, but I couldn't quite figure out, for me, the scariest thing was like a blank canvas. I wasn't like my brother Jack, who can just paint or draw or, sculpt out of nothing. I realized I needed an assignment. I needed and so for me, advertising in the business side of creative became a really good fit. And, but I think, I was sort of like one of those kids that I was involved in politics. I worked for George McGovern's campaign in 1972. I was involved in a lot of school politics from the time I was a freshman. I was on student council and president of class or class officer. And I was we were always big into rewriting the student constitution, or we were, because, you're talking 1970, 68 when I entered high school, 70, 72. So, you've got the SDS, you've got Port Huron was big because that's where the Students for a Democratic Society, Tom Hayden, they wrote the Port Huron papers there. So there was certain side of me that I think wanted to be more radical than I really was. I was sort of safe, but I was sort of I wasn't hippie enough to be a hippie. I wasn't quite radical enough for that, but I knew that I didn't want to be like a square peg either. I like to party. I like to, when I was my mom's gone, my dad's gone, so I can tell these stories. But when I was 14 and 15, I'd take my brother's draft card and go to Sarnia, and we'd go to this bar, the St. Clair Inn, and we'd sit in the back room with all the guys and drink 25-cent beers, and we thought we were hot shit.
Well, and being in Michigan, for those of you from around the world, and here in the Metro Detroit area and up in Port Huron, we're 20 minutes from Canada.
Oh, yeah.
And the laws were different where
easy to get across.
Yeah, at that time, we could just go back and forth, almost just like going to Ohio. It didn't really matter.
No.
And when the drinking age was 21, Canada was 19, and so...
And then when I turned 18, so I turned 18 in May of 72, the law changed in February of 72 to 18.
Oh, yeah, I did.
So, here we are, seniors in high school, and from my birthday to the end of the semester, I don't think I ever went back to lunch after lunch. we would go buy beer, we'd go find a field, we'd play some ball, we'd do something, but we'd never go back to class after we went to lunch.
That's funny. And I'm sure a lot of people at that time, it was probably the same thing.
Oh, man.
And so as you move into your next part of your educational history, going into college, did you know you wanted to be into advertising?
I don't think I did. I really kind of fell into it because I ended up going to the community college in Port Huron.
Which one?
St. Clair County Community College.
Which is a beautiful campus. I've
Great
done a few
campus.
events there, right on the water, the big boats. It doesn't look like a community college.
No, it's great. It's great. And, I mean, my buddy and I, we signed up for this 2-year advertising program in which you ended up with 63 credits when you were done, and 61 of them would transfer directly to the University of Michigan.
Oh,
They had
nice.
a deal worked out. School of Art, no, direct one-to-one credits. So I went through that, and the two guys who ran it, they just opened up our world. They'd have us travel to Toronto, to Chicago, to New York, taking pictures, studying architecture, studying design. We'd go to stores. We'd go all these different places, and we were studying advertising, but we were really studying the world.
And culture.
And
You
culture.
were getting such what a great experience.
It was amazing. And so at the end of 2 years, I had a 2-year degree, but I wasn't sure still that that's what I wanted to do. So my brother, he was a sculptor, and he said, well, maybe you should, try more of an art school for your next, because my buddy went on to Michigan. He stayed in the advertising area. I went to Siena Heights College, where my high school art teacher went. And so I got there. First semester, I'm taking painting, and I'm taking drawing, and I'm like a month into it, and I'm going, this was a horrible mistake. So I immediately flexed my schedule for the next semester and took creative writing, graphic design, and photography, and then a couple other classes, and realized that, okay, I had my sights set to then transfer to Michigan. But something happened that I had an opportunity with a friend of mine to move a buddy to California. We drove a U-Haul truck to California, to Marina del Rey. They dropped us off. They gave us a plane ticket to come back. I cashed the plane ticket in, and I went to visit my buddy in San Diego and stayed.
Tough to leave with that
Yeah.
weather.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
Southern
Oh, yeah.
California weather.
And he put me up for a month, and then I found a place. I had a roommate, and I stayed there for a year, and I was playing in bars. I was a short order cook. I was a lot of the jobs that I have in the song career advice were jobs that I had, because I realized, I was going to try and get a job with a 2-year degree, and the work that I had. And I realized pretty quickly that wasn't going to happen. I wasn't going to get a good job. I had, one job I had was for a sign company. They thought I was going to be doing drafting their signs, their physical signs.
Like actually fabricating yourself.
And I'm like going, I don't know how to do that. And so by week one, after week one, they were asking me to go get coffee. By week two, they were saying, we're going to send you out to dig sign hole posts. And week before Thanksgiving, I got fired. And so I went back to my short order cook point. And at that point, I called my dad, and he said, look, if you can get into Michigan, he said, I'll help you out. And so I sent my work, and I got in. So I stayed in California till May to earn enough money to get back. And then I came back to Michigan, and in 76, I went to the University of Michigan for my last 2 years. And that was life-changing, because that really put me on the track to understand what I needed to do.
Right.
I was, it doesn't sound like much. I was 2 years older than most of the students I was at Michigan with at this point. But it was a big 2 years. And so I just lived in the School of Art. I lived and breathed. I just busted it completely for that 2 years, and then it set me up to then bust it in the real world when I got to donor.
Right on. Well, you mentioned that you're retired and you're a very busy man, but I want to know, when was the first time you touched a guitar?
So we had, I should have brought the other guitar, because the guitar I have at home was a guitar that my mom gave my dad. It's a Gibson LG2, and she gave it to him in 1947. And he didn't really want to play it because he was a dentist, and he didn't want to get calluses on the tips of his fingers, so he didn't really play it. I played it. I think my brother Tom played a little bit. My brother Pat plays really well. So we always had the guitar in the house. I didn't take lessons, though. I had taken. My mom had this thing about everybody should play an instrument, So we had a piano in the house, but I didn't really love the piano. I decided I was going to try the clarinet, and that was horrible. That was excruciating. So I did, when I was like 13, I took guitar lessons for about a year. And then I stopped. I wasn't a very good student. I really wasn't. And but then after high school, I had a really good friend who we had a duo. And he played guitar, and we sang together. And but day after graduation, he said, "Hey, I'm getting married. I got to get a job. I'm done, with this." So for me, I was like, well, I either learn to play or I stop singing. And I really like to sing. That's my background as a singer from the time I was 8 or 9 in choirs and singing as a cantor in church. And I was a cantor until I was about 20, and I was in church choirs until I was about 40. And so that I was a singer first, and then I learned to play guitar well enough to accompany myself.
And I think that's incredible. I've been a drummer 30 years. And occasionally I'll try to drum and sing. I like David Grohl and all that kind of stuff. But, playing a guitar and singing. You have both hands doing totally different things and singing a melody that may not be going along with the melody you're playing. That had to be a challenge.
It is. I will say, I'm a passable guitar player. I make no bones about it. I've improved a lot over the last few years because I play a lot more, and I've tried to, take online tutorials to learn little things here and there. But it's funny. I don't do well when I'm just playing. If I'm playing and singing and I understand how the two work, I guess, when the 3 albums I've recorded, I've done all my tracking with...
Together?
Together. I do all my tracking at the same time because when I was... the last album I did, The Darkness and the Light, the last, the second album I went into the studio to do, I had a producer named Mike Gentry, really good guy, and he and David Roof owns the studio and is the engineer, and he just produced my last one. But he listened to me, start. They were just getting to the process where they were going to decide how we're going to record this. Mm-hmm. We're going to mic the guitar and play the guitar, and then you'll sing later, right? So I start playing, and I played it a couple times, and Mike came in and he goes, I watched you play that song a number of times. And he said, when you play it and you're not singing it, you play it differently than when you're playing and singing. There's an organic thing that happens, and that we went with it.
Well, and I can understand that a little bit because I've recorded a few times, and I've recorded both ways, where they did the drum track independently, and then even though we were in separate rooms, we were playing together. And there's some about the emotional connection when it's all together, because when I played alone, it was like I was so concentrated on time and hitting everything correctly and making it sound clean. But when we play together, it might be a little more dirty, but it sounded right.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. I like to listen to Rob Reinhardt's Acoustic Cafe. he does some great interviews, and he was interviewing this guy John Smith, who's a British singer-songwriter, and he had done this whole album where he did his parts in London, and other artists just did their parts over here in the U.S. and sent it to him. But he was talking about his own recording, and he recorded much like I did, and his feeling was that, I'm going to record it, and if there's flaws, I'm doing 3 takes. And if I don't have it by 3 takes, then maybe there's something I'm doing wrong. But he said, he lives with the flaws because it's that moment.
Yep.
It's that moment. You can't if you just want to make a perfect recording, then separate everything. But if what you want to do is record the song at this moment in time, the way you're feeling, the way you put it out there, then do that. And you know what? If in 10 years you want to re-record it, do it.
Well, and some of the greatest records of all time, I mean, arguably, even if you go into like Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction, the timing is brutal by Steven Adler. But nobody knows it unless you sit down and play it, because that's what works for the song. Yeah. Even some of the Nirvana stuff that's classic, the time signature shifts a little bit between, it speeds up a little bit, but you don't know it if you're just listening to it. But if you put a metronome next to it, but that's what works for the song.
Yeah.
And nobody knows. Nobody knows.
Exactly.
Maybe you know.
I don't know if I know. It's funny because I'm not a metronome person, and that's just me. That's just me. I kind of resist those things, I guess, and maybe I shouldn't, but I do.
I guess it just depends on the situation. You know, I tried playing with a metronome once, and it just screwed me all up. In 2018, your first album comes out.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yep.
And it was called We Wonder.
Yep.
It was nominated for a few Motor City Music Awards.
Yeah.
How was that experience? That had to be a giant pat on the back to say,
was
that was all right.
It was nice. It was. I mean, it was a good recognition. I was really proud of that record. We made that on such a shoestring. I mean, I had a buddy in Chicago who had a studio. We were talking at a party, and he said, you should really record. And he says, I got these rooms over here. He goes, I can arrange it. And we went in for half a day and did 5 songs, myself and Lucy Little, who's a violinist from Chicago. And we recorded 5 songs there. And then the other 4, we did 4 more back here in Detroit at Music Town. Mm-hmm. Ryan Anderson, you could apply, and, you just had to apply, and they would give you free time. And Ryan then did the mastering for me. I didn't know much back then. Probably a good idea that I didn't. I wouldn't have put it out, but it was a good experience and a good way to get my foot wet, dip my toe in it. But I learned when I did the second record, that's when I knew how little because I made the record, and I thought, okay, I did a CD release show, okay, so what's next? And then when I did The Darkness and the Light, sitting down with Mike Gentry and then being part of the Folk Alliance and taking some online tutorials about how to really release an album and what to do, and all the the pieces that go with it. And my son is a great filmmaker in New York, and I had the pleasure of having him create 4 videos for my last album.
Oh, cool.
And that really helped. And just all those different levels that We Wonder was a good beginning step. And I will tell you, the other recognition I was really proud of is that Phil Mack is a DJ at WHFR FM here in Dearborn, and he named that as the best folk album of 2019. that was like a nice thing.
Oh, it's awesome. Awesome to get some peer, a little bit from your peers and whatnot. And, in and around Detroit, how is the folk scene? Because you're coming into a very busy time. I was looking at your schedule, and you're going to be playing.
You know what? It is. I think it's a really good. I think Michigan. Detroit is strong. Grand Rapids area is strong. The Chelsea, Dexter, Ann Arbor area, super strong. Traverse City area, the Upper Peninsula. There are so many phenomenal songwriters and singer-songwriters, artists working in this state. It is unbelievable. It really is. I mean, I'm on part of a couple different songwriting groups where there are people from all over, and one of them we submit a song a month at the end of the month, and then everybody gives you critiques and comments. And then I'm part of another one that's on Zoom every week where you bring a song and you play it, and then people kind of give you their 2 cents, and you can take that or leave it. But I've really taken to at least examine every part of what people bump on or whatever.
And it's great R&D. It's great R&D. If you have an idea and you're like, I think this might work, you have a community that will say, it might work, but why don't you try to take it this way or do a little bit of this, or I don't know if that's really your style, Mike.
But for me, the beginnings of it, like right out of when I retired, and around 2016, we moved downtown, and I met a number of people. I met Dave Tanez, who runs the Ghost Light open mic, and at that time I met him, he was running the open mic at the Park Bar, and he's a young guy, tremendous songwriter, full of energy, and a great songwriter, and he and I just hit it off. We began doing shows together, and we still do. We're doing a show Friday night in Port Huron tomorrow night.
Oh, cool.
It's the first one we've done in quite a while, but and from him I met so many others, Audra Kubat and Emily Rose, and then there's a whole group like Mike Galbraith and Ryan Dillahay, John Freeman, who's part of the Irish community, and I play Irish, so I play at the Gaelic League too, and then there's a group out of River Rouge, Allison Lewis and Don Dupree, Matt DeMetz. It's just like this enormous group, and one of the things we did, my wife and I, is we hosted open mics for about 3 to 4 years, and that allowed us to get to know so many of these.
Right.
You get to see them on a weekly basis, and if you had a well curated open mic, that's where artists wanted to go, and that we learned pretty quickly. If you make it friendly and you make it, you give artists a comfort place, an acceptable place, then they'll come back week after week.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a great experience. I don't know if you know AJ Nichols.
I don't know that name.
So AJ used to own Ash Coffee. And
Downtown Detroit?
Downtown Detroit. There were when he opened his second location. So he had a small location on Broadway,
mm-hmm.
Right by the Broadway, by the Detroit Brewing Company,
mm-hmm.
Right there by Buddy's. He had one location there. He was opening a second one next to the Atwater Brewery in Rivertown. And at that time, my wife and I had actually been looking, because we used to ride our bikes all around, and we had looked at that space, and we thought, man, this would be a great space for music. And so when we met AJ, we said, hey, have you ever thought about doing this? And he said, no, you want to do it? And so we had never done it before. We bought a PA, and we said, all right, we're showing up Thursday, and we did it every other week. and we did that there for 2 years, and then that location just didn't have enough walk-up
Yeah,
business for him.
it's a great space when you drive there, where
Yeah.
Atwater is
Yep.
and what, but
Yep.
not a lot of foot traffic's
No.
coming down that
So
way.
he couldn't make a go, and so he ended up closing it, and then so we did about a year we did at the other location, but it was a tougher location to do it in for parking. People always had to pay to park, so it was tougher, to get people to come to it on a regular basis, because a $10 parking fee or whatever,
Right.
it was steep, and then we had one for a while at the Velodrome on Sunday afternoons, and that was a really good one. But we haven't gone back to it since the pandemic. We my wife and I, we just haven't. Part of it is we've both been busy. She joined the board of the Trinity House Theater, and so that takes up a lot of her time. And I got busier with United Cerebral Palsy and a couple other things.
Well, and what about the open mic and just hearing you talk about the different people you gotten to come in contact with, the different like-minded individuals, there's magic there. I believe in common consciousness, and through history they talk about mastermind groups and the crazy things. And I think with creativity, it's even on a whole nother level. I think when you get creative minds who have a common goal or similar goals, then you come out of that experience with new songs, new lyrics, new ideas, and you don't even know where they came from half the time.
Right.
It's such a magic experience.
Oh yeah, and I mean, I wouldn't trade that experience for anything, and we may well go back to doing something like that at some point, running an open mic, because we really enjoyed it. We enjoyed, for one thing, you're not, where you are every once a week, so it's a little bit, it's a more regular thing that you're doing, but it's fun to then get to see your buddies every week.
Yeah,
and, that's a good part of it. I've played hockey my whole life, since I was 4, and for me, hockey was like that, where I get to see my buds every week and have a beer after, and just sit in the locker room or sit outside and in the parking lot and have a beer and really talk about nothing, but you're just there.
Well, the camaraderie, I think it gets discounted. Is hockey for me, skateboarding. Even if I don't feel like riding, still going to the park and hanging out with my friends and talking smack and just cheering them on or whatever. And with hockey, I play drop-in on Monday nights still, and the age range is from 25 to 65. But we're all having fun. The camaraderie gets discounted, I think, and I think that's what you're hitting on a little bit.
Yeah, it is, and ours is like that too. I ran it for about 30 years. When coming out of the pandemic, I was not going to be skating for a while, and so when our group, I said, look, I've run it. I've had my time. I said, I would love to still show up and play, but I don't want to chase down goalies, and I don't want to chase down guys every Monday night. And I said, so if somebody else wants to take up the mantle, I'm good. And sure enough, 2 of the young guys took it up, and they're running it, and it's like, oh, that's off of my plate, because we used to go through the summer. I will never do that again, because trying to find goalies in the summer, I remember, we're stepping on the ice and it's 10 to 10, and I'm texting goalies, and it's like, ugh.
I love skate now, but I still keep my goal. I still will get in
goal. Your goal,
And
you
you're
never
exactly
know.
right.
Yeah.
You're exactly right. And it sounds similar to what happened with us, because the Monday night skate has been going on for years. And after the pandemic, a couple of younger guys sort of took the helm, took it over.
Yeah.
And they're responsible for the goalies and for the money. And I like being able to just show up and pay my $15.
Exactly.
Or if I have my goalie gear, not pay anything, and everybody's happy I showed up. But let's see. Before we get too much further, would you mind playing a song?
Sure.
Let's see if we can figure out.
Okay.
The only thing I'm concerned with is that mic.
Is this the vocal mic?
Yes.
Oh,
being able to get that to where we need it to. You know what we might be able to do is just move the whole table. Here you go.
Yeah.
Put this in your hand.
Yep.
We'll set this up where you need it.
Or if you want to turn this way, the guitar gives out a lot of. Oh, there you go. There you go.
Oh, that'll work.
All right, cool. And then, does that spin? Oh, it does. It does. Looks like it does. Yeah.
I think that might work.
So I go to some workshops throughout the last few years too, and one of them is up in Harbor Springs, and the guy's name is John Lamb, and he gives these really crazy like paragraph long prompts that you write a song about, and this is from one of them, and it's a song about Michigan, but it's written from the standpoint of that place that you kind of go to escape, but it's written from that place's standpoint. I could use a little color, can't always stand up straight. My dilapidated charm, rusted latches on my gate. I'm where the pavement ends, on the coldest lake in Michigan. I'm where I've always been, where I'll always wait. Up here you're off the grid, little off the rails, off to the dock with one of those India Pale Ales. No shaving and no showers, staring at the stars for hours on the times of your life, every breath you exhale. I am here for you, waiting patiently, though my fire has gone out and my edge is rough to touch. I'm a part of you, you of me. Why can't that be enough? Why can't that be enough? Once you fell into the marsh in your Sunday best, later wandered in the woods alone, scared me half to death. The time you almost burned me down, leaving embers lying on the ground. I am your silence and your secrets, always to be kept. As hard-headed as the hardwood floors, never wipe your shoes. Backwards and barefoot life is the one you often choose. To say that it's roughing it, well, that doesn't quite cover it. I'm a test of your survival, watching your every move. I am here for you, waiting patiently, though my fire has gone out and my edge is rough to touch. I'm a part of you, you of me. Why can't that be enough? Why can't that be enough? See you building character while my walls are falling down. You drive up every weekend, then you turn right back around. Leaves me feeling empty, and it leaves me feeling old. Don't forget to blow my pipes out before it gets too cold. Well, I hear you plan to knock me down, put a new one in my place, with all the comforts of your life so you don't feel so far away. You work so hard to get that prize, if only you would realize you really don't need all that much at the end of the day. I am here for you, waiting patiently, though my fire has gone out and my edge is rough to touch. I'm a part of you, you of me. Why can't that be enough? Why can't that be enough? Why can't that be enough?
So when you're writing, does the melody come first or the lyrics?
It happens different all the time. With a song like that, I started with lyrics, and then just start once I have a kind of a start of a verse or something. I might start playing something, and then that might change the cadence or whatever. And then there's times where I have a melody. And I'm like, I just keep singing it. I keep playing it and singing it until, like, maybe I get all the way through a verse in my head, and then I'll stop and write it down. And then I can kind of go back and forth. But I've done it both ways, there have been times where I will actually have an entire piece of music, which doesn't happen very often, where I actually had a structure kind of piece of music that I was playing with for a long time, and I never put lyrics to it. And then I found this poem that my mom had written, and we never, when she died, we didn't really know that she had written these poems, and we found them on a floppy disk with her recipes, and we found these poems. And one of them was called Sunday Morning, and it was just this super simple structure rhyming piece. And I took this piece of music and I started just playing, humming kind of singing along with it, her poem, and it worked great. And that'll be on my the next album.
Cool.
Because when I went in to record this last time, I actually recorded 21 songs. I finished 21 songs, but there's 12 that are going to be released in June.
Coming up.
Coming
That's
up.
What, Darkness and Light?
Darkness and the Light was released in 2021.
Okay.
In January, and then the new one is called Particles to Pearls, and it'll be released. I just sent the files, just sent the artwork that my buddy Dave Tanyez did, and so the CDs are being made, and we're just going into the process of starting to send out advance work. Right now, we're sending the files out, to some people in advance,
cool,
so that they can review and they can, kind of get a. We're actually going to try and do some of that, where you get a song and you try and get it on a playlist or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of that evil side of this business.
But it's a necessary. We were talking about it before we came on the air. The marketing side of things, especially for the creatives. That's not the way we're wired. We want to produce, and when we produce something awesome, we figure it's going to stand on its own. But unfortunately, in these times, with the multitude of things that just bomb everybody on the internet and everything else, to stand out, you actually have to put a little effort into that part too.
Yeah, and I think I read that something like 100,000 1,000 songs a day are uploaded on Spotify.
Oh my.
It's just like an insane number
Yeah.
of new pieces being generated, and you know, it's like I don't want to get overwhelmed by that though. I just what I'm hoping I can do with this is expand where I play, and in areas that are, you know, more listening room, more, I guess, quiet spaces versus, you know, I'm not a rock and roller. I don't pretend to be. I have some songs that are have a little more push to them on this record, but I'm definitely not a band person, and so, you know, when you're a soloist, you got to kind of figure out where the best place is for you to find, and then also to find your audience.
Right.
You know, my audience isn't you know, Loving Touch. It's not. You know, it's
Smalls. That isn't your cup of tea.
No, but you know, Ghostlight or PJ's Lager House. I'm doing a show there. You know, places like that, and then the Trinity House. We're actually going to do my CD release at the Trinity House Theater, which is a really cool little, you know, space in Livonia, and that's going to be exciting.
Mm-hmm. We might have to readjust that mic closer to you a little bit, just because we moved it when you were singing.
Oh yeah.
You know, do you have a favorite guitarist?
Oh man,
I have to say, I smiled when I saw John Prine as one of your influences, because one of my favorite songs of all time is "Hello in There,"
and that song.
That got me into investigating John Prine, and that guy, hit lyrically.
There's nobody better.
Oh, so good.
Because he can make you laugh and cry in the same song.
Yes.
You know, "Hello in There" is, you know, that's a heart-wrenching song. Sam Stone.
Yeah, it's
Sam
awesome.
Stone. But then, you know, you've got Flag Decal on the same record, and then, you know, you've got Please Don't Bury Me, and then his last album, he was 71, and Tree of Forgiveness, regardless of when he produced it, it's a classic album. I mean, and you know, and then he had an unpublished song that was recorded in a hotel room that they released after he died. I Remember Everything, which is one of the most touching songs he's ever written. You know, I love John Prine. There's guys that I love, like Steve Earle. I think Lyle Lovett is like an incredible songwriter and an incredible guitarist. You know, most of the guys that, you know, like as far as just guitar playing, like Molly Tuttle, who's a bluegrass player, is just phenomenal. Billy Strings, guys like that. But as far as for me growing up, I was really influenced by Paul Simon, and I still think Paul Simon wrote some of the greatest little guitar riffs, you know, and just, I mean, that dude could flat out play.
And musically, he was on a different level. Like, what he was creating was a completely different level, and that's why I think he stood out so much, because he was doing different things, and it hit such a wide demographic.
Yeah, and then, you know, he leaves Simon and Garfunkel, and then he does album after album after album, and then he's kind of quiet for a while, and then all of a sudden Graceland comes.
Right.
And it's like, what? I mean, that album is just...
And everybody had to dive back in. Who got into Graceland here, they had to go backwards.
They had to go backwards, and that's a great thing, too, is that, you know, you get people like that who have that catalog, and you go, yeah, you might have been introduced to him here, but go back and listen to him there. You know, it's like people who hear Rod Stewart now, you know, the crooner.
Right.
I tell them, go back and listen to Jeff Beck Truth.
Yeah.
Go back and listen to the work he was doing then. Go back and listen to the Faces. You know, it's like some quality material, you know.
And I personally love that. When I run into somebody who's been around already for a while, and I have all this new music that I get to go backwards and investigate, you know, and then you see their evolution and where they're at today, and and it's pretty cool.
I remember my introduction to Bruce Springsteen was Born to Run, and I was completely unaware of the previous albums. You know, the E Street Shuffle and Asbury Park, and that was fun even back then. Now you know you get people now they get to go way back. David Bowie, you know, I kind of grew up with. You know, the Man Who Sold the World, and I mean that to me, Mick Ronson is a guitar player. Having seen him live several times, might have been my favorite. You know, like just flat out guitar player that I've ever seen. And another guy is a Michigander. Was from the Frost. Oh, geez, I'm gonna forget his name now. Oh man, it's Hunter.
Well, you bring up the guitarist from David Bowie, and so many great musicians get overlooked because the front man or the band as a whole is so powerful. Yeah. And I see that a lot, especially in some of the amazing bands with the crazy arena shows, and nobody pays attention to the bass player, the guitarist, or even the drummer. And they are so talented to get to that level, and to be that solid backing symphony for what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I remember the bands, you know, going to see like Jethro Tull, and you know, when I went to see those bands, it was like, man, yeah, Ian Anderson was the front man, but what a band! Yeah, Billy Joel, another one. Yes. What a band!
Even Madonna, Madonna.
Yeah, but you know, and every player in that band, you know, those bands were great. Tom Petty's band, you know, it's like, you name it. Yeah. They had to be rock solid to stay in those bands, to be part of those bands.
Yeah, I love it. Well, we're gonna shift a little gears here,
all right,
because I want to talk about Michigan UCP. Mm-hmm. I want to get into that because you've been on the board for 28 years. Yeah, nearly 28 years. What got you started? What got you involved?
So, my wife's first cousin, his name is Elmer Tirana, and Elmer was the executive director for, at that time, what was called United Cerebral Palsy of Detroit. And there were a number of United Cerebral Palsy affiliates in the state at that time. There was Lansing, there was Detroit, I think there was maybe Jackson and one other. But he was Metropolitan Detroit. And he called me one day, and he knew that I worked at Donor. And he said, you know, this is back in, you know, the late 80s, and he said, we need to do a public service announcement. Now, back in those days, every TV station, as a matter of the broadcast rules, had to devote a certain percentage of their airtime to public service announcements. And so ad agencies very frequently like to do those because you could stretch your creativity. Very often you could pull some emotional strings that you couldn't maybe for a client, you know, like a Ollie Fretter or a Highland Appliance, and you might win an award. And you might do some good for the organization. So, you know, he called me and he said, we need a PSA. Could you get one done through Donor? And so I asked the leadership, and they said, yeah, we'll do it. We won't take it as a client, but we'll devote resources to getting a commercial done for them. And so one of my teams, Ann Gahagan and Tony Goodan, had this idea of a wheelchair in a you know, kind of in a studio with walls, jail walls, cells being built around it. The notion that, you know, when you're in that chair, you're confined.
Quite an impactful image it is.
And Dan Hackett, who was a creative director at Donor, he had aspirations to be a director and filmmaker. So he said, I'll put a crew together. We'll do it. It'll be a spec commercial for me, and it'll be really a powerful thing. And it did. It ended up being really powerful. And the board really liked it. So they said, would you come on to the marketing committee. So I joined the marketing committee, and a year later they said, well, what we'd really like to do is maybe have something that's more of a branding statement. And so at that time I was working with a writer named Lou Chavone, and we came up with an idea of turning obstacles into opportunities. And the idea was that every day, an individual, a person with a disability, they want to do the same thing as you. They want to get up, they want to either go to work, they want to, make breakfast, they want to go to the store, they want to go to the gym. They don't really, this isn't like they don't really want your pity, and they don't want your, they just want the right to be able to do that.
And get treated like everybody else.
Yeah. And so that was the basic idea. We filmed individuals with disabilities going about their everyday lives. And whether it was at the gym, at the grocery store, a cheerleader, they're, as we said in the copy, was, these are they're ordinary people doing the most extraordinary things.
Yeah.
But they don't really want, they just want the chance to get up and do it again tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a really powerful statement, and we ended up producing this commercial. We had just done this big job with Chiquita Bananas, and the director who worked on that, we showed him the idea. He was from Pittsburgh, and then had moved to LA, and he loved the idea, and he said, I will pay to bring all my gear. If you can get the film paid for, because in those days you're shooting on film.
Right.
So you had film stock and you had processing. Everything else we could get donated. So we got a grant, and we got all that covered by a sponsor, and they came in and they shot for 4 days, scouted for another 4 days before that, and shot this. We edited it. It won a silver at Cannes Film Festival. But more than that, we made it available to other markets so that they could tag it with their affiliate. And it ran in 123 different markets and countries. And it was really successful. And they used that for a good 10 years. And then just, the last couple of years, we've rebranded the organization because we merged into one state organization. So UCP Detroit and UCP Michigan merged to become Michigan United Cerebral Palsy.
And that's why your email changed about a year ago or whenever that went down?
Yeah. And we also developed a tagline, which is let's close the disability divide.
Right. Yep.
And we think that that's a really good rallying cry. It's how all the ways we, as an organization, all the ways we do it with assistive technology, with advocacy, with financial help, all these different ways that we're helping. But then every day out there in the world, we need the public to also do that. We need the government to do that. We need corporations to do that. Mm-hmm. It doesn't, there's still the employment numbers, the education numbers are staggering when you start to look at them in terms of still how, where we need to go in terms of getting equitable treatment for people with disabilities. It's a tough battle. I've worked on PSAs for the Detroit Zoo, the Michigan Humane Society, the Morris Animal Foundation, and I will tell you a really sad truth that it's easier to raise money sometimes for puppies and cats than it is for people with disabilities or for people who are homeless.
That is a sad truth.
It is.
That definitely is. What you say is resonating with me because one of the most influential people in my skateboard life, he owned the first ramp I ever skated. He's 6'5", always positive, always a great dude. I mean, he grew a mohawk and then he took donations to shave it off for charity at the Wyandotte Art Fair and stuff like that. And he raced hydroplanes, and he was paralyzed from the waist down. And we reconnected in the last few years, and he's still the same fired up dude. Like the Get Her Done Foundation came, put a elevator in his house. He's still working at BASF, although he had to shift because he was a chemical engineer. Still smiling, punk rock, positive, and doing his thing. But his work, helped him move forward, and different things, organizations helped him move forward. But what you said, the reason I say it resonated with me, because he just wants to be treated like everybody else. He shows up in his car, and he has a car where the seat turns, and he can put his wheelchair behind him, and he's still driving. And it's just, I'm so happy that he is that same smiling dude, but it isn't the case for many.
No, and you realize that for every guy like that, and you met Mark Henretta at our event.
Yeah,
great guy, always going after it as well. For each, and Mark's not without. He's had to have surgeries on his hands. He's had issues because of the amount that he has to lift himself, and we don't think about those things. We don't think about those little, those obstacles, and they are obstacles, and they meet them every day, hurdle past them, and then there's somebody else that throws another obstacle at them, and it's like, that's what they don't need. They need the I'm a little concerned about the state insurance change is really going to negatively impact individuals who were disabled in accidents, and we've already seen it with Vladdy.
Yep, and one of my friends works for Special Tree, so I'm very aware of what you're talking about. How they took away in Michigan, they took away the long-term catastrophic care. And it really is going to affect people's lives, affect families, have a huge ripple effect that I don't think they actually looked at the long term of that.
I know.
Yeah. But, the amazing work you're doing, the hockey event we just did.
Oh, it was fun,
and
right?
the event, how many years you been going?
So now, that was our 20th event.
And you've raised the organization, about $500,000?
About $500,000, during that time period, yeah.
And just seeing the kids smile and even the fans in the stands, and it was such a day of positivity. And I had a great time. It was like playing hockey in a kayak. That's basically the way I explain it to people.
That's a good way to explain it.
But just seeing the smiles and having a good time, and then following the sled event, seeing Joey Koser and McCarty on the ice, having a great time. Jay Adams was on the ice, and just everybody, I think, really enjoyed themselves for a great cause.
Yeah, and the great thing is that all the guys that were on the ice from our side, whether it was in a sled or whether they were playing on the Puckster team, that group raised over $30,000 themselves. And some of it was carryover from 2020, but a lot of it was going after donors again, and we'll start all over again next year, and we're gonna we feel like we kind of have it down now how to do this event, and St. Mary's is a wonderful venue to do it in. They've been really good to us out there.
I was totally impressed by the campus. That's the first time I'd ever been there.
My son went to school there.
Such a cool campus, and on the water there. It's just a great location.
Yeah, it is.
Great location. Yeah. So, you're retired, and you're busy as you've ever been. Now, on your bio, it said adjunct professor. what is an adjunct professor?
So-
What do you do?
So, adjunct professors, it generally, the way I understood it, it's you're part time. You come on board as somebody with professional experience, teaching whatever your discipline was. So they have adjuncts in architecture, they have them in nursing, they have them in different areas. I started as an adjunct. This is my 7th year at Lawrence Tech. And Lawrence Tech, technological university specializing in architecture and engineering, but for the last 15 years, I think, they've had a pretty solid media and communications school. And Jody Gaber is the chairman of that department. She used to work at one of the post houses and knew myself and Gail Offen, my partner. She's my writing partner when I was at Donor, and we decided, when we were still there, we would teach this one class. It was in the evening, and it was right across the street from Donor. So it was pretty easy, except that we didn't realize you had to write the syllabus, design the class week to week. You gotta be there. You gotta make sure you know what you're doing in class, and then you have to grade everything and give your students their time. So we end up spending a lot of time, on this, but it's a labor of love. This is our 7th year that we've done it, and we've had really great students, and we've had a lot of students go on to find jobs in the ad agencies or similar ilk, and that's really fun to see.
Yeah.
They have a really Jody has an amazing high level of placement for her students. I mean, just incredible.
Well, and that's huge for the university. They put that on there,
Yep.
and now all of a sudden, that
Yeah.
percentage goes up, and
Oh,
more people want to come and be part of it.
Yeah, and it's a nice campus. I really have enjoyed the time there. And then 3 years ago, before COVID, I did a summer class for high school students entering college at CCS, and I taught like kind of a boot camp, 90 course hours in 3 weeks.
Oh my!
Yeah, and it's like
And CCS is no joke for our viewers. CCS is probably one of the, I'm gonna say, top 10, in my lifetime, been top 10, top 20 art schools in the country.
Yes.
It's this little tiny campus right behind the Detroit Institute of Arts. And even when I was going to Wayne State, it was like, oh, CCS. Oh, it's legendary.
Yeah.
And so to do that is huge.
Yeah, so I've really enjoyed that, and I'm finally going to do it again this summer.
Oh, cool.
So it's nice because it's a different experience than it is out at the university, because the students we get at Lawrence Tech, they're not necessarily they're not designers, they're not they're very beginning. So it's like a real beginner's class for idea generation. We teach them how to look at a strategy, identify a main idea, then write commercials or write ads to go with it. The
CCS is the best of the best.
Yeah, the CCS. And now these are kids that are juniors or seniors in high school. So they're kids that have had some art and they've had different things, and they get to pick these different courses that they can take in the summer at CCS. And so they may not have had any advertising either, but some of them may have. And so it's a little bit, it's a deeper dive in a short amount of time. And I kind of like the boot camp aspect of it, because you can challenge them, and you see them when you challenge them. They like rise.
Yeah,
it's kind of cool.
Is it at the CCS campus?
It's at the one at up by the Fisher Building.
Oh, okay.
They have where the Henry Ford Academy is. It's in the Taubman Building.
Oh.
So
I was just thinking you could walk there from the Park Shelton. If
yeah,
it was
I ride my bike to these classes though.
It's only a mile down the road or so.
Yep.
But Man, Mike, time flies
I know.
when we're in the studio. We're going to have to do this again.
Yeah.
I want to thank you so much for coming in, hanging
Thank
out
you.
with us, playing a song. We're going to close out the show with another song if you don't mind.
Sure.
But please let our viewers know how they can keep up to date with you, where you're playing, all that kind of stuff. What's the easiest way for them?
So the easiest thing is I have a website, and it's psychosongs.com, PSYCHO songs.com. And on there, there's a tab for music, there's a tab for videos, there's a tab for shows, and that has everything on there that you would want. I mean, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook under Psycho Mike or Psycho Songs, Mike Ward Psycho Songs. But really, the website's the best place.
Okay, and keep up to date on the social media side of things, because as we do more with Michigan UCP, I'm throwing things out there where you can donate, throw $10, $20, whatever, and help. Let's lessen that gap. Let's do that, and with your help, we'll continue to make progress with that.
And that website is mi-ucp.org, and there's some phenomenal stories that we filmed, and if you want to know more about what the organization does, go to that website, and then at the end of it, make a donation. There's a nice tab for donate.
Well, Jay just sent me a video today. Actually, he sent it to me yesterday, and it was right when I got on the sled. And he was on the bench, and he's like, "Gerald, come here." And I'm going over.
That.
He just sent it to me, and
well,
I was
you gotta
like,
"Send it to me."
Okay, I'll send it over, because I was like, "How you feeling?" And it was 5 minutes after I got on, and I had never been on one, before.
Oh,
and it's a pretty cool video. But I want to thank you once again, Mike. I'm sure we'll have you back in the future. Thank you guys for watching the show. It's awesome to be able to come here with you. I always talk about the goosebumps, and you can see them. We're doing great things here in the Better Rate Mortgage Studios on the drop-in with Mike, and that's what I encourage you to do. The goal is to be the best version of ourselves we possibly can be. So hopefully you heard something here in the last hour that got you fired up to get off the couch and make life happen. And we're going to close out this episode of the Drop-In with another wonderful song by Mr. Mike Ward. And thank you, guys.
Cool. I'm going to spin this around here so we can get that. This is where the title comes from, Particles to Pearls. This song is called Time. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Little hands on the 5, big hands on the 10. Face we learn to recognize, to be, whereby, when. It can improve some wine, heal many wounds. It can fly by so fast and be gone far too soon. The pendulum swings, ticking time, oh time. Catches up sooner or later, no rewind. Before it's up, it can wear us down. If we knew where to look, could there be more to be found? Carbon to diamonds, particles to pearls, seeds into sequoias, astral dust into worlds, measures of life, unwritten histories, the marching on of seconds and centuries. The hourglass and sifting time, oh time, catches up sooner or later, body and mind. For it's up, it can wear us down. If we knew where to look, could there be more to be found? Whoa, whoa, whoa. Early to bed, early to rise, fortune ahead, falling behind. Can we stop the clock, restart the ride, take back the stolen and keep a little on our side? The sun chasing shadows across time, oh time, catches up sooner or later to yours and mine. For it's up, it can wear us down. If we knew where to look, could there be more to be found? If we knew where to look, could there be more to be found? If we knew where to look, could there be more to be found?
He is Mike Ward. I am Gerald Valley, and this is The Drop-In.